Sorry, hold on one second. Why the hell is this guy calling me over and over? Or no, he's calling me 3 times now.
Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about Brittany Cartwright's recent comments, specifically about her worst days with Jax Taylor and, well, his whole history with a bipolar diagnosis.
Right, and the main thing here is how different their stories are. You have Brittany's memory of his struggles and this alleged prior diagnosis. And then you have Jax's own version of his mental health journey. It all kind of surfaced after an episode of The Valley and then more on the after show.
Okay, so let's start with Brittany's side. She describes some, well, pretty rough patches, talking about his behavior after these benders, she called them.
Yeah, and the come-down period afterwards, which sounded really difficult.
She mentioned he was just really inconsistent, right?
Exactly. She said he could be, fine one day and then screaming at me about who I'm dating. It points to some pretty big emotional swings happening.
And then the big piece, her claim that a doctor actually diagnosed Jax with bipolar disorder.
And this was apparently about a year before he went to rehab in 2024. Bipolar disorder, involves those significant shifts in mood, energy, thinking.
And she gave that really specific detail, too.
Oh, yeah. The prescription said it was never filled, just sat in her junk drawer, and that both she and Jax's sister had, pleaded with him to just try the medication.
Okay, but Jax, he tells it differently.
Yeah, somewhat. He does admit he got checked out, and they found, quote, something was wrong. So he acknowledges that part.
But not the bipolar diagnosis back then.
No. He's pretty firm that the first diagnosis was depression, persistent sadness, loss of interest, that kind of thing.
Right.
And that, he says, is why he didn't fill that first prescription. He then mentioned trying Lexapro, which is an antidepressant.
Okay, and how did that go?
Said he took it for 2.5 weeks maybe, and then just stopped.
So then fast forward to rehab, what happened there?
Well, Jax says he told the professionals, look, this Lexapro, it isn't working for me. And according to him, they basically said, well, you're not depressed. And then came the bipolar diagnosis while he was in rehab.
And how did you react to that?
He said he cried my eyes out, which, isn't uncommon. Getting a diagnosis like that can bring up a whole mix of emotions relief, maybe distress.
Yeah, I can imagine. He seemed almost relieved, though.
He definitely framed it as a turning point. Expressed relief, said he felt medication would finally fix this fucking problem, his words.
And he claims things have been better since.
Yeah, he stated he hasn't had any more blowups at all since he started the medication for bipolar disorder.
Interesting. And what about Zach Wickham? He weighed in too.
Right. Zach didn't seem surprised at all. He basically said, he's been diagnosed with that before. That's not an epiphany.
So that kind of aligns more with Brittany's timeline, doesn't it?
It does suggest that maybe others around Jax were aware of potential or actual earlier diagnosis. Yeah.
Okay, let's shift to that phone call incident. That really highlighted the tension still there between them.
Oh, absolutely. During the Valley, after show, right. Lala Kent pointed out Jax had texted Brittany, 14 times while she was filming?
Yeah, and they showed that flashback of Brittany seeing the calls and just being like, why the hell is this guy calling me over and over?
Total frustration. That kind of repeated contact, it could point to some anxiety, maybe difficulty managing impulses in the moment.
So we actually saw her answer one of the calls.
We did. She picks up, asks him straight up why he keeps calling and texting.
And his reason was?
First, it was just checking in, what's going on. But then later he mentioned having car issues and just generally a bad day.
Okay, trying to get some support maybe.
Possibly. But Brittany reminded him, hey, I'm filming right now.
And did that stop him?
Nope. He apparently just kept talking, kind of ranting, as the show put it, even though she clearly said she needed to get back to work.
And then he turned it on her.
Yeah, that was the twist. He accused her of being mean and short with him.
Wow, after calling her repeatedly while she's working.
Exactly. Brittany just kept saying, I'm not being mean, I just have to film. Eventually, he got off the phone.
And her comment afterwards.
What is my life?
Yeah.
Yeah. That really summed up the frustration, didn't it? It shows how tough their communication still seems to be, with different needs and expectations clashing.
So if you want to keep up with all this, make sure you subscribe to Real Tea TV.
Yeah, and hit that bell icon. You don't want to miss our next breakdown. Lala Kent was on her podcast, Give Them Lala, talking about Jax Taylor and Jesse Lally's divorces.
Yeah, and her way of looking at them was really different. For Jax, she kind of said he's manipulative, but then, interestingly, not smart enough to be calculated.
Right, almost too obvious in his actions. She seemed to think that makes him, maybe more vulnerable legally.
Exactly. Especially with Brittany apparently claiming things like rage incidents near their son and maybe even ring footage. Lala seems to feel his behavior, good or bad, is just out there. She thinks he'd be way harder to face in court because he's careful, like he wouldn't do anything dodgy in public with their daughter, you know?
So he'd look squeaky clean was her phrase, I think. Even if, behind the scenes, she suggested he might be making Michelle Sani's life, well, hell.
And that detail about him wanting their daughter to go to school in Orange County, where Michelle doesn't live, kind of seems like a strategic move, maybe.
It paints a picture of two very different approaches to, well, messy situations. One is maybe openly chaotic, the other controlled but potentially more difficult privately. Lala also touched on Bravo friendships, didn't she? Quoting producer Alex Baskin.
Right, about how Baskin apparently feels like they miss the real story sometimes, you know, when the cameras stop rolling.
Yeah.
Lala's brother Easton agreed.
So it suggests that even with cameras everywhere, there's still a whole other level of interaction and maybe drama happening off screen that shapes things.
Definitely.
Next update we have about Lisa Vanderpump. She's been addressing a few things, starting with Marciano Brunette from Vanderpump Villa.
Yeah, his claims about being silenced over something supposedly involving him and Demi Ensman, who's also on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
And Lisa's response was something like, all will become evident in the end.
Pretty much. She seemed confident that between the Villa cameras and the discussions expected on the Mormon Wives show, the truth would eventually surface. Just wait and see.
She puts a lot of faith in the cameras, it seems. And what about Marciano apparently hitting on her?
Oh, that. She apparently just found it flattering. Kind of brushed it off with that typical confidence, you know?
Right. And she also talked about that anti-bullying post she made recently.
She was saying viewers need to give cast members a minute, basically let things play out. And she mentioned her own tough times at, like, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunions.
So showing some empathy for people in the hot seat, maybe drawing on her own experience.
Seems like it. Then she had that comment about Garcelle Beauvais unfollowing the other RHOBH women, comparing Garcelle to a lion who doesn't care what the sheep are doing.
Ooh. Sounds like she thinks Garcelle is totally over it and unbothered.
Yeah, definitely comes across that way. And then there was this stuff about Scheana Shay's upcoming book, possibly having gossip about Lisa.
What was her take on that?
She kind of said, look, I've always supported Scheana and the others, even if they say negative things. And she feels like anything bad they could say is probably already out there anyway.
Almost like she's braced for it, but also thinks there are no big secrets left to tell.
Sort of a resigned but still supportive stance, maybe.
Yeah.
And finally, about Jax Taylor and his sobriety.
Right. Can he actually change?
Lisa seemed to think it really depends on his environment, you know, needing support and staying away from negative influences, old patterns, that kind of thing.
Okay. Next update we have about Mauricio Umansky. He posted on Instagram about his recovery from that skiing accident, the broken clavicle.
Yeah, good to see he's healing up. It's been about 9 weeks. But there's also this pretty serious family legal situation unfolding.
That's right. He and his sister, Sharon, are trying to get a restraining order against their father Eduardo's ex-girlfriend, Samin Tabibnia.
And the claims are really quite severe. They're alleging abuse against their father, threats, manipulation, even physical violence. Sharon apparently mentioned seeing bloody arms and bruises.
Wow. Yeah, they said the issue started years ago but got much worse more recently. They're calling their dad, who's 81, battered boyfriend, and suggesting he has early dementia signs and is scared to press charges himself.
It's really concerning. And Mauricio is apparently going to testify to support the restraining order, which just shows how seriously they're taking this.
But the ex-girlfriend, Samin Tabibnia, she denies everything, right? And she's making her own claims against Eduardo.
Exactly. She's apparently alleging he had violent outbursts, possibly linked to alcohol or family issues, and that she's been harassed with calls and texts even after they filed for the order against her.
So it's a really messy, complicated situation with completely opposing stories. Definitely goes way beyond typical reality show drama into some heavy, real-world family conflict.
It really does. It's a stark reminder of the complex, sometimes painful, private lives behind the public faces we see on TV.
Okay, shifting gears. Next update we have about Shamea Morton from Real Housewives of Atlanta. She's been talking about her co-star, Angela Oakley.
Right. Shamea seems to think Angela's kind of afraid of Porsha Williams.
And her reasoning was, Angela forgave Porsha really fast for that comment about sleeping with her husband, Charles Oakley, but held a grudge against Shamea just for laughing.
Yeah, that's the gist. Shamea saw it as inconsistent, maybe suggesting Angela didn't want to cross Porsha. And Shamea also felt Angela twisted things about her own friendship with Porsha.
How so?
Like, Angela's making it seem like Shamea had issues with Porsha, bringing up Porsha not being at Shamea's wedding, even though Shamea felt they'd moved past all that. Shamea seemed to feel Angela was stirring the pot.
And the worst part for Shamea, it sounds like, was Porsha not really sticking up for their friendship to the others or talking to Shamea directly about it.
Yeah, that lack of direct communication often seems to be a big issue in these shows, doesn't it? Misunderstandings just fester.
On a totally different note, Shamea also shared an update about her surrogacy journey.
Yes, she mentioned that a previous attempt wasn't successful, which must have been heartbreaking, but they have a new surrogate now and are hoping for a boy.
It's very personal stuff to share. Good luck to them. But she also had some pretty sharp words for the other newbie, Brit Eady.
Oh, yeah. What did she say?
Called her not a kind person and not a girl's girl. Pretty harsh. She even predicted Brit wouldn't be back next season.
Wow, okay. That's some direct criticism. Sounds like there's definitely no love lost there. Standard housewife fare, maybe, but still strong words.
And she even hinted Brit might not be totally truthful about her insurance license or something.
Okay. Planting seeds for potential drama or questioning someone's background? We'll see if that goes anywhere on the show.
Okay. Next update we have about Spencer Pratt. He was on the Not Skinny But Not Fat podcast, looking back at the end of his friendship with Lauren Conrad.
And surprise, surprise, it apparently revolves around Heidi Montag. Spencer's version is that Brody Jenner wanted out of the whole fake dating Lauren thing for, like, real clout.
Right. And that supposedly made Lauren want Heidi, her wing woman, back by her side. Spencer claimed Lauren even made Heidi go out with her on Valentine's Day when Shady were official, kept her out super late.
So Spencer's painting Lauren as someone trying to pull Heidi back into her orbit, maybe feeling threatened by Spencer.
Seems like it. And he interpreted Heidi moving out of the apartment they shared as Lauren thinking she was basically kicking Heidi off Laguna Beach.
That's quite an interpretation. Suggests some serious behind-the-scenes maneuvering, at least in Spencer's view.
He also flat out said MTV's deal was basically to make them look like the worst people on earth on Laguna Beach.
Wow.
And that he and Heidi knew it and went along with it for the money.
That's pretty cynical, but also maybe refreshingly honest. It's a very candid take on how those early reality shows might have operated, manufacturing villains for ratings and cast members being complicit.
Definitely food for thought about those early days. Okay, last one. Next update we have about Jesse Solomon from Summer House.
Yes, he was clarifying things about Lexi Wood.
Yeah, basically saying she was never really his girlfriend, even though he asked her to be exclusive during filming.
That's blunt. She's not my girl. We were never really boyfriend-girlfriend. It definitely downplays what viewers saw on screen.
He also talked about his friendship with Ciara Miller. Lots of speculation there.
Right, but he was clear just friends. He admitted they're flirty and hang out, like at Coachella in Miami, but insisted nothing romantic is going on.
Setting boundaries, then. He also mentioned Summer House Season 10.
Yeah, he seemed pretty sure it's happening because casting is apparently underway. Good news for fans, I guess.
And finally, the reunion. He confirmed Paige DeSorbo did talk about her breakup with Craig Conover.
Okay, so that definitely gets addressed. And Jesse thought Paige was pretty convincing in her explanation of it all.
Interesting. And he also admitted he didn't actually know about their problems until he watched the show like the rest of us.
So if you want to keep up with all this, make sure you subscribe to Real Tea TV.
Yeah, and hit that bell icon. You don't want to miss our next breakdown.
Thank you for watching this video. See you tomorrow.